know, a lot of you have pets, dogs, cats, birds, you name it. But back in the day, our presidents had some very strange animals roaming around the White House lawn. This is Tony Dominic
and Sherry Spencer.
And we are here to talk about things, a minute or of history or two. And today we have a special request from one of the Avon Lake High School teachers to talk about pets in history. Right, Sherry?
That's right. And I hope you are recording.
Of course I'm recording. Now I have to edit that out.
It's better than doing it over.
Yeah, you're right. I'll just leave this in.
Yeah, you know, there were quite a few pets in history. They go way back from colonists on through to the present day.
Really?
There were dogs. Dogs were working animals, and they also served as protectors. They were good protection, but they also ultimately became pets. Part of the family.
Well, and we had some presidential pets that were weird too, I think.
Yeah, we did. But some of the more common pets, though, back in the day, they're also cats. I'll bet you can well imagine why cats were a favored pet.
Because they don't have to do anything but turn them loose.
That's right. And they get the mice away. And, you know, if mice got into your house, they were going to eat your grain and your food. And that was terrible, terrible situation. And then horses, you know, not that you would really cuddle up to a horse, but a friendly horse. And
well, those are working animals, and every property had a horse probably, and
yes, they did. And then, of course, there were birds. People would capture wild birds, put them on cages, bring them into their houses, and turn them into family pets. And this is kind of an odd one: squirrels. Yeah, teenage boys in particular would go out and they would raid squirrel nests, and they would capture little baby squirrels. And at that time, you know, the little squirrels they're not afraid of people yet because they don't know to be afraid of people. And they would tame these little squirrels, and they would even put little chains on them, little collars, and they would walk them around, and the squirrels would sit on their shoulders as they would go around town. Had pet squirrels, you were in good company because we had 2 U.S. presidents who had squirrels as pets. Did you know that? You know, Warren G. Harding was our 29th president, and Warren G. Harding had a pet squirrel, and he named his squirrel Pete. And in fact, Pete, he made quite a few friends, and he made the newspapers. Photographers used to love to photograph Pete and publish his picture. The public loved it. And that's not all.
Weird. That's weird.
Harry Truman, our 33rd president of the United States.
The buck stops here.
He also had an affinity for squirrels, and he too had pet squirrels. He would go out on the White House lawn with peanuts, and he would feed the squirrels, and he had a favorite. And I don't know why, but he also named his squirrel Pete. So both Harding and Truman had pet squirrels that were named Pete.
Pete and repeat.
Repeat. But they were different squirrels. They weren't
okay.
But in during Truman's term, people would see squirrels scampering all over the White House lawn. They were there looking for their treats, their little handouts.
I can see why people would like squirrels. I mean, they're kind of cute and they're fluffy and all that, but man, they can tear you up. You got to be careful around squirrels.
That's right. And, you know, probably given the variety of unusual pets that our U.S. presidents had, squirrels were tame compared to some of the others, because our 6th president, John Quincy Adams, had an alligator.
Alligator?
Yeah, he was gifted with an alligator, and he kept it. And I'll bet you can guess where he kept it. In the White House.
Yeah, it was in the moat that was around the White House.
No, it was in his bathtub.
No way.
Yes, he kept
That
it
means
out.
that he didn't take many baths.
Well, they had more than one bathtub in the White House.
Oh, okay. Okay.
In one of them lived this alligator. And then, of course, I had mentioned earlier on, birds were popular. People would capture wild birds and they would bring them in because this is before radios or any kind of electronic music. So they would enjoy the sounds of birds, especially if they were songbirds. Who was Andrew Jackson? He liked birds and he had a pet parrot. It was a gray parrot. I think he had actually bought it for his wife, but you know how that works. You buy a pet for somebody else and it becomes your pet. So he had this gray parrot, but unfortunately, the parrot had a very foul mouth. I don't know where he picked up his language,
Wouldn't
but
have
it
a
was
clue.
not repeatable in polite. Yeah. It was not repeatable in polite company, the things that
Yes,
this
I was just
parrot
going to
would
say, I
say.
can only imagine what would happen if they had some kind of a soiree and the parrot was still there.
Anyway, this pet parrot that had picked up this bad language was there for this president's funeral. And during the funeral, the bird lets loose with a stream of obscenities, offended many of the attendees at the funeral and had to be removed quickly. Well, and then there was, our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, and you probably know what his pet was, right?
Yes, he had a pet pig.
Yeah, as a boy, not as a president.
Right.
Yeah, and he loved his pig, and he played with his pig. And supposedly the pig would play hide and seek with him. I have heard that pigs are very intelligent animals. And he would go into the woods with his pig and they would spend a lot of time together, but it ended sadly and badly.
Yes. Yes, it did end rather badly for the pig.
on the dinner table.
Yes. And I understand that young Abe refused to have dinner that night.
Do you blame him?
No.
I mean, who wants to eat their best friend, right?
Yeah, it's not a good thing.
Never a good thing. And then there was our 19th president, who was Rutherford B Hayes, and he had a pet goat. Not surprising, right?
No, no. We are full of goats in our history.
And the goat used to pull Hayes's son Scott around on the White House lawn in a little goat cart. And Hayes's son loved riding around in the goat cart.
It's I wouldn't mind having. We had things called go karts though, and they weren't. They weren't goat carts.
Well, he could have attached a goat and had a goat cart then.
Ride around in my turkey cart.
And then there was our 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt. Now, he's kind of a favorite of mine just based upon his pet because he had guinea pigs.
Oh gosh.
And you know how I feel about guinea pigs.
Oh yes, and they pop and they make all these whirring helicopter noises. And, I've lived that life.
But that's not the pet that Theodore Roosevelt was known for. He was known for a badger that they named Josiah. He was making a tour through the American West, and a little 12-year-old girl stopped and greeted him and offered to give him a 2-week-old badger. For some reason, Truman agreed to this, and she dashed off and then quickly returned with a baby badger. And Truman kind of took to this badger. He said he would pet it and, cuddle it. And it was kind of a nice little animal until it got older, started getting a little snarky, and it started nipping. It liked to nip people on the legs, which at first was sort of amusing, but as the badger got older, bigger, and bit harder, it wasn't so funny anymore.
Yes, badgers are pretty angry little animals.
That badger ended up in the Bronx Zoo in New York City. So once it became
it didn't go to Wisconsin.
It may have. Maybe that's where it is now. Who knows? Well, then we had our 30th president, Calvin Coolidge, and they had a pet raccoon. And it came to them in sort of a strange way. I don't quite understand this. It was a gift to the Coolidge family in November of 1926, and it was intended to be served as Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. I grew fond of their raccoon, and they actually put a little collar with a little leash on it, and they would take it out for walks on the White House grounds. Again, the photographers loved this. So there were pictures of Rebecca the raccoon on her
Oh, Rebecca.
walk on the White House yard. And in fact, they even had a little collar made for her, and it was embroidered. And the embroidered collar said White House raccoon. She was official.
Ay, ay, ay. We have some weird people coming and going into that building.
And then our 31st president, Herbert Hoover, had a possum for his pet.
Was it playing possum?
Probably. Well, it strayed onto the White House property, and the family ended up keeping it. And guess where they kept the possum? Not a surprise. In the pen that had been built for the Coolidge family's raccoon, Rebecca.
Good move.
It was handy.
Very frugal, cost effective.
Cost effective. Actually, Hoover wasn't the first one to have a possum at the White House, because before him, our 23rd president, Benjamin Harrison, had 2 possums during his tenure. So how about you? You had any interesting pets aside from
the only thing that I think of when I go back in time to good old Avon Lake, Ohio, was Alligator Bill Harrison. Alligator Bill lived over on Mull, and he had an alligator in his bathtub. Hence the nickname Alligator Bill. And as I recall, he also had a monkey in there. I remember going in his house and seeing the alligator, but that's how it was. I think growing up, everybody had a dog or something. But
how about a squirrel? Would you keep one of those in your house?
No, I don't need a squirrel. I see them chewing on my branches all the time. Well, we learned a lot today.
Yeah, we did. But you know what? I gotta go feed my rabbit now. So for now,
this is Tony and
Jerry.
We'll see you next time. We're closing the door on weird presidential pets. Bye-bye.
Me and my brothers in the back. He'd turn on the game and catch the play-by-play coming from the park. Mama opened up a map. We never had a clue about where we were going. She'd smile and say half the fun is not knowing. And we'd ride, arms hanging out the window for miles and miles under a big Kentucky sky.